Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and we'll be sure to answer those at the end of the webinar. Shawn, I will now hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Shane. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. We appreciate your time today. My name is Shawn Litchfield, Regional Vice President here at P3 Propane Safety. Today, we have a special guest here, Jeff Stone, the Propane Safety and Training, Propane Safety Training and Compliance Manager of Mirabito Energy Products. What we're going to talk about today is how to respond to an interruption of service, along with some other things associated with that. Before we jump in, Jeff, why don't you give a little bit of a background about your expertise, your propane knowledge there?
Well, what I tell all my fellow employees is that I'm really not an expert in anything, but I know a lot about a lot of different things that I'm constantly learning, which is anybody that says that they're not, they should rethink what they're doing. But I've got basically 35 years in propane, and after going to work for Mirabito's, I had to start learning all about petroleum and convenience stores and all sorts of other things. But I started out as a driver. I've been a service manager, a branch manager. Unfortunately, had to do sales for a little bit to help learn oil, but am now pretty on my way out, or starting to look forward to retirement, and basically just doing propane for Mirabito's.
Nice. Well, we are excited to have you here and look forward to kind of talking through this stuff with you today. So to kick things off, and we keep these pretty short, as everybody knows, we try to stay in the 20-minute range here, which I'm sure we will. But really today, what we want to focus on is common reasons for interruption of service, best practices for response and documentation, common mistakes to avoid, and advantage of using a mobile application to kind of help with efficiency and also accuracy in terms of completing things in the field. So out of the gate here, Jeff, what are some of the most common reasons you see for interruptions of service occurring, and why do you think that takes place?
Well, I listed 5 things, and in my opinion, especially all folks that are in the business, they're kind of self-explanatory, but we always have the folks that have a problem, paying their bills. Unfortunately, and I don't know if this is as much of a problem for everybody, but we accidentally let people run out for whatever reason. We have regulator freeze-ups that create interruptions of service. We have new residents moving into, they could be a renter, or they bought a house where we've already got existing gas and it's been shut off after the previous resident moved out, and we're getting a call to get things going again, and we're going back out because, well, we've shut the gas off, so we've created an interruption of service. And gas order calls can also turn into an interruption of service, because a lot of times when people call smelling gas, especially if they still have pilots or range there and the tank's getting low, they're smelling the ethyl mercaptan that's at the bottom of the tank. It's coming up through, and it's always an indication that the tank is getting ready to run out. And when we get there, they've run out, and it's an interruption of service. But like I say, all that is self-explanatory of those things, and I'm sure there's other things that we could come up with that create interruption of service.
Yeah, no, of course, and we've worked together for a number of years, 2 years, Jeff, and I just in working with you, I know and I've seen that you guys have some of the best policies and procedures in place as it relates to kind of what you want to see documented, completed when an interruption of service occurs. Can you talk a little bit about what your expectations are, not just yourself, but the company expectations for the folks in the field, and maybe things that they should avoid they should think about avoiding, because it's an error or mistakes that you see a lot.
Right. Well, not to just read our policy and procedure for an interruption of service. I am going to my basic focus on it just out of the gate is to ensure customer safety, customers, we don't want to have any property damage, public safety, and of course our employee safety. And having said that, we want to make sure that they take the right safety precautions, whether it's PPE or CGI units, and be prepared to respond to an interruption of service, and create it just like or not like a priority service call, such as someone calling in smelling gas. And some of our policy and procedures, they do overlap in how we respond to them, depending on what we find. I'm sorry. One of my biggest things with people in general, or employees, is documentation. And the old phrase, if it's not documented, you didn't do it. And along with that, because I am a little bit of a stickler on documentation, to me, poor documentation can also be like you didn't do it. And I constantly have to remind people, it seems, especially if they're getting a little complacent or something, or they're trying to interject some shortcuts, to remind them, hey, this documentation is really important. God forbid something happen and we end up going to court or something. This documentation, if it doesn't exist, we're just holding our hands up with no response and have no defense at all with it.
What are some of those shortcuts, Jeff, that you may have seen?
Some of the shortcuts are, and unfortunately, it has to do, some of them haven't been done on purpose, but the shortcuts can be with interruptions of service, is where people or employees are assuming, or again, they're complacent, they, for some reason, they forgot what the policy and procedure are. Terminology has got them in a bind. They don't know they forgot the difference between a leak check, a leak test, a pressure test, a flow and lockup test, and they write down the wrong things. They fill in the wrong information. They're not following the approved methods in NFPA to do a leak check, which is the primary thing that's going to be required when you have an interruption of service before that service can be left on. Unless it's a freeze up and we're replacing a regulator, then along with a leak check, we've also got to be doing a flow and lockup test too, because we've got a new regulator on there. We want that information documented on the appropriate forms that we're using.
What's the importance of that? I think you make a really good point with the regulator replacement process. And I don't know as everybody goes through that process of doing a flow and lockup when they need to. What is the reason behind, or the importance of that?
We want to make sure that the regulator is, when there's a call for gas, we want to make sure the regulator is putting out enough of the required gas pressure that the appliances require. And everyone's different. With the new sealed combustion units, it's very important to know what it is. But at the same time, we also need to know when there is no call for gas, that the regulator is locked up and is not still passing gas downline. Years ago, some of the old timers used to say, well, there's pilots on the range, you don't have to worry about it. Well, we can't count on that at all anymore, because we've gone from, when I started, pretty much everything had pilots on it, and now hardly anything has pilots on it. So that the operation of that regulator can be very crucial depending on the equipment and just the safe operation of that regulator. I don't know if that's a common thing in our industry for replacing the regulator, but I insist that the regulators be changed if there's a freeze up. It's something where our drivers can't do it, but our service techs carry an assortment of regulators with them at all times. They can make something work for the application, at least to get them by. Especially, it seems like most of these happen after hours, and we can still get them going and have heat and so forth, especially this time of year.
Okay. And just wrapping up that portion of not just the regulator replacement, but interruption of service in general. Again, I just in working with you, you're a big fan of comments, right? And having technicians or drivers put down an explanation, and maybe you can just elaborate a little bit about your expectation.
To me, it goes in with the whole process, and I'll just to answer your question, Shawn, long explanation as usual. I like good documentation for different. I like it to paint a picture. I want to see when they got there. Of course, who the customer is. Is it one? I want to know who the names of the employees are prior to them maybe signing at the bottom in a printed form. But I don't ask anybody on the comments to, produce a novel by any means, but, at least a brief explanation. Found customer had run out, drifted in, how many gallons of propane they drifted in the tank to get them going, did a successful leak check. And of course, their documentation of the leak check will be on the form without a doubt. And I want to know if before they left, were the appliances are they up and running? Are they working prior to you leaving? And again, the documentation's there for the leak check. Depending on how they've done the leak check, they can write in the percentage of the tank or what the pressure was that day and what they did the test at, depending on where they did the test. And we have signatures at the bottom by the customer and by the employee. And depending on what they're doing, if there's pictures that were done at the time, then you really get a complete idea of what's there the last day we were there and what we did and what everything looked like outside, everything. It's, to me, and again, I'll go back, I unfortunately have had to do a few depositions. And if I can look at an employee's previous paperwork, and I audit so many of them, I can tell exactly why they were there and what they did while they were there without even talking or interviewing that employee. And unfortunately, I've been faced with that, and the employee is no longer around for me to maybe re-interview and find out, what it was they did or question them. Are you sure you did such and such? Or I'm having some doubt. And if I can look at that documentation and truthfully, with confidence, tell the 4 lawyers that are grilling me that yes, this is what we did, and I have no doubts about it. It really helps out a lot, and it again could save our company. I'm going off in the wrong direction, but that documentation is just huge.
Yep. No, I think that makes perfect sense. And a good segue too into kind of the advantages of the mobile platform. And, we've talked about this, Jeff, where, things like real-time feedback, it's not, you can audit documentation from your desk at home. You don't have to necessarily get it scanned and sent or visit the location necessarily. The difference between probably the training between drivers and techs. You know, drivers might not have as much leak check training or things like that that are required. So making sure that there's technology built into an application to help with that.
That's right.
From an educational standpoint, but also, as you know, you've seen our error recognition technology. And to your point, the photo side of things, that's huge. Pictures are incredibly valuable. If God forbid, knock on wood, something goes wrong and you've got that photo evidence to prove things. I mean, I think there's a huge benefit to the mobile aspect, and that's kind of what I was gonna share next. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Jeff.
The only thing I would add is probably repeat some of the things I've already mentioned, but it's something where it's so important to make sure the employees understand, you know, I'm not just trying to be a pain in their butt, but how important it is. And, you know, what would you want to do if this was your mom or your dad's house or your sister's house or your, you know, someone that, you know, you really love? You want to make sure that when you go home at night, you can still sleep because you have the confidence that you've done exactly what you're supposed to do, whether it's through the company policy and procedures or following national code on it too, and just put it in more of a human type relationship situation. But and we keep on reinforce the training on it too. But,
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that, Jeff. And so what I'm sharing now here is the mobile service interface with P3 currently, and the interruption of service application specifically. So we are integrated with a tremendous amount of back-end softwares, and when that, and we are, you know, with Mirabito we are as well. What that does is when you plug in the account number, it's going to automatically bring up that account along with any of the locations that fall under that account. And when we click through, we're brought to our interruption of service application where we can select the reason. And just, you know, we've talked about some of these reasons, Jeff. I'll just kind of pick one where there's an out of gas. We'll click continue. We're going to get to our leak check section, and built in to P3, to your point on making sure training, education, all this, very important. One thing, our mobile professor is built into every aspect of P3. So whether it's a leak check, we get into tremendous detail of conducting a leak check, using a water manometer, using a test block or a block gauge. There's a lot of information here that could be useful for the folks in the field. And not to mention the technology we have built in to make sure that when they do this documentation, they're doing it correctly. As I enter our leak check. So I'm just going to show one example of a leak check being completed and incorrect test procedure. So this is our error recognition technology. I can drill right into this hyperlink and it's going to explain to me in detail, which this example, why it didn't work, right? NFPA 54 Annex C suggests I should be within 1/2 inches and 9 inches water column when I do my leak check. So in order to do that, I got to have my 9 there, again, within 1/2 inch of 9. And when I have that, then it's going to let me right through. It's then going to identify, say I did have a leak in the system or some aspect of this account required follow-up. If I had to tag out a container, I can do that. An appliance, I can do that. Regulators, we can handle those as well. So this is going to show me everything that's on that customer's account that's been input into P3. When I click continue, because our leak check was good, we can email that inspection directly to the client. We are always going to document our sniff test as a part of our documentation. And then to Jeff's point earlier, in terms of commenting, you know, we can say leak check, okay, all appliances working properly. If I could type. Oh, I forgot my SIF test. So again, that's our technology. I click continue. And as the user, I can sanity check my documentation, get the customer signature. They're on site, get my signature as the inspector, and then we're done. So one example of entering an interruption of service through P3 and kind of the technologies that we've built in to help hold not everybody accountable necessarily, but to make sure they're doing it right. And if they aren't, helping them understand why so that they are doing it right the first time, every time moving forward. And when that documentation goes through, ultimately what's going to happen here is that will show up in your activity report. As we can see, got my interruption of service, and if I need access to that document, so if you're remote and you want to be auditing these things, I can get right to it, identify my document. If we need to bill accordingly from the office, whatever it may be, but easy access to all documentation on every customer's account. And you can get to it many different ways. This is an example of the account details page. All the documents completed via mobile are done and cataloged by date. So easy access, easy input. I think that kind of covers the mobile entry side of things. So thanks for sharing, Jane. That's kind of, I think I'm good on the screen share. So with that said, we appreciate everybody's time. Jeff, in closing, is there anything you wanted to add or really emphasize?
Well, you know, it seems like for years, whether it's a safety meeting or an information meeting, or maybe even your annual review, it always seems like one of the big topics is always communication. And that can be communication with a customer, communication with a supervisor, fellow coworker. The P3 system helps really improve on communication because people can see things quicker. I always still say, we still need that great documentation in the system. And sometimes we need to have a verbal conversation the next working day if it was after hours or something. But it's just so important that everybody is on the same page and doing things correctly. The nature of our product, sometimes it's forgiving and sometimes it's not, and we've got to make sure that everybody is safe every day.
Yeah, no, 100%. So Jane, are there, I know we had opened it up for questions at the beginning. Did any come in, or are we good to wrap up?
We got one question so far. Can drivers download P3 on their iPhones?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter as long as you can run Google Chrome, which is essentially what it's run off of, which is all devices. We do have a lot of drivers that use phones, so whether it's an iPhone or a Samsung, I mean, you name it, as long as they can run that, yes, it can be input, and it's a lot easier for drivers to utilize a phone versus a tech who's doing more safety inspection related items and is a little bit bigger. A tablet's a little bit better for them, but it's a personal preference thing. Whatever you want to use, you can utilize.
Great, and that is the only question we got.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate everything, and look forward to maybe doing this again in the future.
Thanks very much, Shawn.
Thanks, everybody.